And first tonight, the rising costs of Obamacare, the fierce fight over immigration, the growing battles with unions, governors across the country bracing for the next 4 years. So what do the Republican governors expect to see during round 2 of the Obama administration? Wisconsin's Governor Scott Walker joins us. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening. Good to be with you, Greta.
Nice to have you. Governor, first, your thought on the president's inaugural address today.
Well, it's always, days like this are always very uplifting, but the rubber hits the road in the next couple of days, and I think for the 30 states that have Republican governors, we're hoping we've got a president that's willing to work with the states, give us some authority to act on behalf of the taxpayers. If we can do that, we're going to have some good progress. But ultimately, it's got to be about growth and getting people back to work, and the best way to do that is through limited government and putting more money back in the hands of the American taxpayers.
Specifically, what would you like to see him do?
Well, I think in a number of areas. One, if we talk about things as simple as like Medicaid and other issues that come up in the budget over and over again, empower states, Democrat and Republican governor alike, empower governors to go out and make decisions on a state-by-state basis, not at a one-size-fits-all type approach. I think for a number of us, we'd like to have that kind of approach. We've shown in states like Wisconsin and elsewhere that even though we inherited a budget deficit a few years ago, we now have a budget surplus, giving states, giving innovators at the local level the authority to do things without as much federal interference as we had in the past would be great. But we'll have to see if that can happen. The president's talked about flexibility before. Now's the time to make it happen. And I think he's got willing partners at the state level if he's willing to give us that kind of flexibility.
You said he talked about flexibility before. Have you actually seen it, and have you asked for it?
We have not. It's been asked for not only from Republican governors, but even through the National Governors Association. There's been a lot of talk about the need for that. That's something we're hoping that will happen, particularly because we know there's a difference between Republicans controlling the House and Democrats controlling the presidency as well as the United States Senate. And if they ultimately want to get things done, one of the best ways to get things done on behalf of the American people is give that kind of authority back to the governors at the state levels. You've got a good mix of Democrat and Republican governors out there, but part of it's not just about Medicaid and about spending. It's ultimately about getting this economy going again. And I think, to me, that the best way you can do that is by putting more money back in the hands of the American people, not more money back in the hands of the government at the state nor at the local level, or certainly at that matter at the federal level. And so that's going to be a part of our discussion. I think many of us as governors are hoping we get more action in the future.
And we're going to go back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Governor, this has been 36 hours of talk, celebration here in the city, inauguration. We do this every 4 years, but now everyone's going to be back to business tomorrow morning. I'm curious, how do you characterize the state of the Republican Party?
Well, I think it's a lot of soul-searching going on. And some people right after the election suggested somehow that Republicans should change their core principles. I'm not one of those. I think the core principles we stand for are strong. And I think that it's still a center-right America. It's certainly a state-by-state in the 30-some states that have Republican governors. But I do think it's important that we have a message that's described, at least in many ways, as more relevant to where people are, whether they're working families, whether they're young folks coming out of college, whether they're newfound immigrants, whether they're ethnic minorities, or any other group out there we've talked about in this election cycle. I think our message of limited government, greater frugality, ultimately leading to more freedom and more prosperity for all of our people is a great message, but we've got to find a better way of making that message known and getting out to places that Republicans typically, at least nationally, haven't gone to. As governors, we do that every day, and that's something we could learn in Washington.
You mentioned immigrants. Immigration is something that's going to be hot on everyone's radar, high on everyone's radar screen. What would you suggest about immigration policy in this country?
Well, I think, when we think about whether it's my ancestors from Ireland and Germany many generations ago, or it's people like my in-laws on my brother's side of the family who just came a generation ago from Mexico, in every case, the people who, by and large, have come to America have come with the dream of living a better life for their children, getting an education, working hard, in many cases starting up their own businesses, living the American dream, and we ought to find a way to make that more possible. Now, that also means we live in a society of rules, and so we need to abide by the laws, but I think there are practical ways of moving us forward that abide by those laws, but do so in a way where any ethnic group, no matter where they come from, can live that piece of the American dream, and that's a message that conservatives and Republicans stand for.
What do you do about those who are here illegally in this country? Have you thought about that? Because that's one of the thornier issues in this.
Well, clearly there's got to be a well-thought-out process in doing that. There's got to be a balance between respect for the law, but also a way that, one of the things overlooked in all the talk about securing the border, which is important, is that we've got a mess when it comes to the federal agency that controls immigration. It's very difficult. That's an area where we've got makers, people who want to come in and work hard and live the American dream. I don't care whether they come from Mexico or Canada or anywhere in Europe or Africa or anywhere else around this great globe. If people want to come here and add value, they want to work hard, they want to live the American dream, that's what America is all about, and we've got to find a better way of making that happen.
But what do we do about the ones who are here?
Well, I think that's got to be a part of the process because, again, there's a lot of folks who've been waiting in line, and there's got to be a legitimate balance for those who sought to come into this country legally and do so in a way that respects the efforts of those currently waiting and those who've come in the past, and still not devastate this nation's economy. But we are a country of laws. We've got to respect that, but we also got to find a reasonable way to move this forward and not get bogged down, as we so often have in the past, in the federal bureaucracy, which I think is largely the reason we have the problem we have today.
Governor, thank you, sir. Nice to see you.
Good to be with you, Greta.